Welcome, welcome to Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I am your host, Meagan, and my amazing co-host is...
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hello. We are your source for messy, imperfect homeschool advice and community. You won't find shiny influencer vibes here. We love homeschooling. We love doing life with our kids, but we keep it real. We don't gloss over the rough days, and we don't hide our struggles.
True story, right? The other thing that you can expect here is secular and progressive values. We don't reaffirm one another by interjecting random amens and spout off flat earth conspiracies or argue that you should just put those racist comments into context and then they aren't nearly as bad as you're making them out to be.
Just gloss over that racism with a bit of context. It's all fine.
Same.
And really, you can swap the word racism in that whole context situation for misogynistic comments, homophobic comments, etc. Although homophobic is such a crappy word, like you're not afraid, you're just an asshole. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, right. True story. Okay, so democracy is crumbling around us, and every day we are hearing about more and more politically motivated violence, but we aim to provide a break, maybe some disassociation from reality. So today we'll be talking about fun and education. Do we owe it to our kiddos to make their education fun? Is it something we should sprinkle in? And really, like, how do we find balance and rigor and fun? And how do we do it all at the same time and effectively?
Yeah, exactly. But first, we start off all of our episodes with a weekly recap. It's part of our Keeping It Real vibe. So how's your week been, Amanda?
My week has been okay. So we're in Cabo, and the week started with rains and then flooding and then an earthquake. It wasn't big enough that there was a lot of damage or anything, but it was very close to where we're staying. So it was very loud. We actually thought that some of the construction equipment just right outside our window had maybe exploded when it first happened because of the way the building shook. So that was exciting. And then kiddo got sick because, of course, he did from eating something or something. And it's really hot. So we tried to go out for a walk on the beach. And with my dysautonomia and things like that was a really bad idea. And I had to spend like a day just like laying in bed in front of the air conditioning trying to sort myself out. So yeah, we're here for like Spanish immersion classes, and I think they're going okay, but we tell it how it really is, right? And so it's not like it sounds amazing and super glamorous, and people are like, oh my God, that's so amazing. I too want to go to Mexico and do Spanish classes. But it's not as smooth as you would think. Like I thought I had it all sorted out. I had it in writing and we're here. And the things in writing don't actually matter. It's not actually going the way that the in writing said it was going to go. So, you know, we're working on that other skill where you just try to be flexible and make the best of it. But last night we went out to this farm that does farm to table food, and we spent not a lot by California or even US standards, but a lot by Mexico standards on just a freaking phenomenal meal. So I'm in a much better mood today than I was before dinner last night. I'll put that out there.
Isn't it amazing how food can turn things around?
And like, I was really excited about a good salad. I did a tequila tasting. That definitely helped. I managed to make it all the way through college without an aversion to tequila. So I very much enjoyed my sipping tequila tasting. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how today goes. Yeah. How about you? What's going on with you? You've got a lot going on.
What else is new?
Yeah.
First of all, I feel like we have to address my hair. If you're watching on video, it's life size today, like bigger than life size. I am in South Florida. There's an episode of Friends or a couple of episode arc of Friends where they go to the Bahamas or Jamaica or something, and Monica's hair is like massive. And I kind of feel like I've got that happening today. It's definitely the Florida humidity situation today. And I'm from here, so like this isn't weird, but like I no longer have a US plug blow dryer. So it's doing what it does today naturally because it is. So yeah, so the ongoing saga for months now has been our visas, and our visas came through, which we are beyond excited about. But the last part of that process is getting the visas stamped into your passports and getting some residency cards and stuff like that. And that has to happen at the consulate in Washington, D.C. For us, you have an assigned consulate. And so there was like, do we mail our stuff here and be without our passports? Do I bring them? Like, we kind of went around and around, but mail into the US right now from Europe and most places in the world is really screwed up because of tariffs. So it just seemed much safer to fly over and hand our passports in. And so I'm waiting for them to come back. So there's some tricky timing with that, of course. Why wouldn't there be? That's my life. But we're kind of working through that. So that's good. But in the meantime, I got to spend the first couple of days in New York when I got here, and I got to see my best friend from high school, which was super amazing. And I went and saw Oh Mary by Cola Scola, which was freaking hilarious, like just so out of control and so funny. I was able to get a last minute lottery ticket because there was one seat all by itself, and because I'm here by myself, it was perfect. So I lucked out for being a loner. And then yesterday I came to Florida, and my grown-up time best friend lives here, and so I'm staying with her. And I think I might have mentioned on the podcast before that she's had a really rough year. She lost her mom and her mother-in-law in a 6-month time span. And so anytime I come to the US, I've been trying to carve out as much time as possible to come and kind of help with whatever needs helping and just hugging and whatever else, and just time. So last night we went out for my favorite pizza, which was so exciting. They're from New York too. I was born there, and her husband are from New York. And the pizza place that we go to here in Florida, we're like, dare we say it might be better than New York pizza? Like, it is that good. It is so good. So we went last night, and I was starving when we got there, and it was an intentional strategy so that I could have as much pizza as possible at dinner. And I had 3 pieces of pizza, and it was like the best thing that's ever happened. So, life is good. Things are moving. It's all good. The kids are good, and it is what it is, So yeah. So
Yeah.
fun and education. Let's dive into it. What are we aiming for? Is there a balance we should be striving for? I think this is going to be another one of those weeks where Amanda and I differ to some extent. I think I might surprise you this week, Amanda, because I am a loosey-goosey unschooler and Amanda is an aggressive academic homeschooler. And so we tend to approach things from very different ends of the spectrum of homeschooling, but I might surprise you with some stuff this week. So let's see. So let's start off by kind of framing the conversation a little bit. And I feel like we had this a couple of weeks ago because we did the whole what counts as school situation. And it was like, we kind of had to talk about the difference between school and learning. If there was a difference for some people, there's not. And so maybe we need like some ground rules for this one as well. So what do we actually mean when we say fun? I mean, you've got a day at Disney World levels of entertainment fun, keeping kids laughing and smiling all the time and barrel of laughs. Or do we mean being engaged, being curious, feeling satisfied when they figured something out? What is our definition of fun? So what would that look like in your world, Amanda?
Again, I think it's one of those things for us, it's kind of situational. I think fun can and does include all of those things. It's just about it being balanced and, yeah, making sure that we are also being careful to keep things, yeah, that thriving for curiosity and that feeling you get when you're actually like finish something, get through something that was kind of hard and like you feel good about that, and qualifying that as fun as well. But that's not to say that a day at an amusement park can't also be part of school and learning and fun from time to time in our home, right? How about for you guys?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I was kind of jotting down some notes for today, I had to do some real thinking on this because we tend to work on things that are passion projects, that are interest led. So by nature, they are enjoyable because we've chosen to do them. Or even if they are not enjoyable, they are a means to an end because they help us prepare for something else that we want to do. So I think for us, there's a sense of maybe not fun, but fulfillment, accomplishment, pride, all of that, which kind of, I think, ties into feel good. Maybe I would say instead of fun, I would call it feel good. And that works. And so it isn't all laughs and party time, but that satisfaction that comes from meaningful work, I think, is what I would call fun/feel good. So yeah, I think we're on a similar track there.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I hadn't thought of that, but that like the feel good. And it's, I mean, in fairness, like I'm not going to sit here and say like feel good is the exact same thing as fun. They're definitely, those are two different feelings, but I do feel like they go hand in hand.
Mm.
Yeah, to ignore them. So I think the second part of that, you kind of touched on it, and we did an episode that talked about this a lot just a few weeks ago. So if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it. But it comes down to that thing, what do we mean by learning? Is it simply, memorizing facts, making sure that you know all of the things that are in your textbook or in your formal curriculum? Is it building a skill through repetition? Or is it exploring and problem solving and wrestling with new ideas and critical thinking? And so, like Meagan started out this episode talking about, if you've been listening to us for a while, you know where we fall on this. And homeschoolers learn so much more than just what's in textbooks or formal curriculum. And our podcast in general, we firmly believe that. Now, I personally, as an aggressive academic homeschooler, I feel there's a difference. There's definitely a bit of a difference between school and learning. But still, ultimately, I hope my kiddo is learning loads through homeschooling, even if it doesn't fit neatly on my weekly schoolwork tracking spreadsheet. There are a lot of things that I hope he's learning and that I consider learning, but it might not really track it on our academic tracking spreadsheet.
It's like gravy in your world. Like
Yeah,
bonus.
yeah, exactly. It's great. And if I was, and maybe at some point when he's older and I have to track all of the electives, like those things would go under electives, all kinds
Mhm.
of different things, or I'd find creative ways to do it. At this point, he's in middle school. I don't need to keep track of all of those things and fit them into a neat box for hours and credit and all of that. And so I don't, right? I'm not creating
Exactly.
extra
Yeah.
work. Yeah. Like no extra work if
That's
it's
my
unnecessary.
That's my constant theme. I do not create extra work. If it is not required, I am not into I have too much to do. And if I did have the spare time to do that thing, I would put it towards something that was like reading a book on a sunny afternoon in the park. Like I'm not creating a spreadsheet for fun. Just if that's your idea of fun, have at it. But no, I am it would be a nap, it would be a documentary, it would be reading a book, it would be going for a walk, it would not be a spare spreadsheet. So yeah. All right, so we've got some definitions going. I mean, maybe the real question isn't fun or not fun, but how do we balance different kinds of learning? There's a difference between something being entertaining, like we were saying, versus something being engaging, something meaningful, a challenge that feels rewarding and fills up your cup, if you will. So maybe that's where we are when we're kind of defining fun.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And look, again, if you've been listening to us for a while, you know that we're gonna always make a case for whatever we're talking about. So with that in mind, right, the case for having fun in your education and your learning at home, especially as homeschoolers. First off, the most obvious one that again, I feel like we talk about in almost every episode is just motivation. Like kids, and let's be real, every adult I know they learn better when they're motivated and enjoying themselves. If you don't want to be there, if you don't find it enjoyable or at least mildly entertaining, you are just not you're not gonna yeah. It's like yeah.
Yeah. When you say that, it reminds me, I have a master trainer certification from this group called Langevin Learning Services. They're like the gold standard in corporate training. And their master trainer certificate is like ridiculously, you have to go to a bazillion seminars to get it, and they're crazy expensive. But because I worked in big pharma, they always had money to spare. So I was like, I'll boost my resume as long as I'm here. Can I go to take this class? So, but it was funny because Langevin had these principles of adult learning. And they were things that in their mind, the way they were presented, were things that set adult learning apart from other styles of meaning. If you came from like a traditional education background, here's how teaching adults differs. And I'll never forget that it was like adults need to know how their work fits into the big picture. And as I've progressed in life and at homeschooling my kids and stuff like that, I'm like, that's BS. That's not just adult principles. Kids want to know how they're doing will apply in the real world as well and how it fits into the big picture. These are not principles of adult learning. This is just human nature. It was so silly now that I look back on it. They were good principles, but the way they were framed were like, eh. So yeah. The other thing is, I think motivation, huge, like you mentioned, but retention. If I am not interested in something, it's going in one ear and out the other, or in my eyeballs and out the back of my brain. It is just not sticking because I don't care. If it's there and it's something that's joyful or it's something that I'm engaged in and I'm interested in, I'm going to remember it. I mean, my kids, we've had experiences that over the years, my kids still talk about like a bazillion years later. I'm sure it's the same with your kid where they're like, do you remember that time? It sticks when it was fun or it was meaningful in some way. It's going to stick. You know, I see posts in groups about like flashcards and this and that. I mean, how many 3x5 index cards did you write out as a student in school? I couldn't tell you what it was written on any of those cards at this point. I mean, like that's just dates of battles. Okay, fine. Yeah. Another thing I think that we can focus on when we're talking about fun and engagement and meaningful work is intrinsic curiosity. When we make learning fun, it tends to spark little offshoots, right? Where then you're like, oh, what about this or what about that? I know we build our unit studies every month that we put out. They go to our Patreon members and then we have them on Teachers Pay Teachers. And Amanda and I co-build them. We pass them back and forth. I end up almost every month. I text Amanda and I'm like, I am so far down a rabbit hole about subway trains or pizza dough or the history of this weird thing. And it's not even a topic that is a passion project for me. But once I start and I'm having fun, I'm in it to win it. And I am so far down. I send Amanda my notes. I'm like, this is more than you ever wanted to know about this topic, but I couldn't help myself. And so when we can get our kids to a place like that, it's pure magic.
Yeah, no, for real. I think that's totally true. And then another point that I think often gets forgotten or overlooked or glossed over, but is equally as important, is equity. For neurodivergent learners or even just reluctant kiddos, fun may be the entry point that makes learning accessible to those kids. And like, I think the vast majority, I won't say all of us because as soon as I say everyone, someone will be like, not me. But I really think that the vast, vast majority of homeschoolers, we are doing it this way because we want to make sure that our kids are accessing the information in a way that works for them, that they can retain, that will make sense, and that really sparks that interest going forward. And a lot of us, again, not all of us, but a lot of us are working with kiddos who are differently wired in one way or another. And so keeping this in mind and remembering that fun or that feel good, that all kind of plays into making our goals for education that much more attainable with our kiddos.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think, I mean, I was chatting with my friend when I was here and we were talking about adult diagnosis of ADHD and how many parents are realizing their own neurodivergence as their kids are getting diagnosed. I was walking down the street the other day in Manhattan and I hear this guy and this girl talking as they're walking down the street. And she was talking about this friend who started to question her own neuro identity because, and I was like, I only caught this much of the conversation, like this little bit. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about because this is a raging trend among middle-aged women who are going through this process with their kids and then going, well, I do all that stuff too. And I was talking to my friend, like how much different school would have been for us had we had known. And so we do know for our kids and we can make those changes, which is so awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so we have a lot more to talk about. Before we do that, we just want to do a quick reminder. We have a Patreon community. We were very intentional in building our Patreon community. We wanted to make sure that it stayed a really nice, supportive, encouraging place And we would love for you to come join us. So there's a free membership level where truly all you have to do is sign up and join. It's totally free. And you get a newsletter and a few other random things throughout the month. And you can kind of stay in the loop. And then if you decide you want to join at another level for X, Y, or Z, you're welcome to do that. But if not, at least you're in the loop about what's going on over there. And then we have a series of different levels. There's a book club level. There's the level that just gets you the unit study each month. There's other levels that include the book club and some chat features and online message boards. And then there's like the ultimate one where you get like 5 meetings a month with us, like live meetings with us and other people and really nice community. And sometimes it's just one or two other people, and sometimes we have up to like a dozen people just hanging around and chatting, but we try to make sure that we keep it small so that everyone gets a chance to actually talk and form
Yeah.
those relationships that we're all so desperate for. So again, that's over on Patreon. Just Google Patreon Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. We'll be the first ones to come up. There'll also be like a link here in the show notes or wherever you're watching. So yeah, come check us out. We would love to see you over there. And like I said, if nothing else, just sign up for the free one to follow along so that you know what's going on. I just sent out the day we're filming, I just sent out this month's newsletter earlier today. So it's there and you'll be able to go back and see it whenever you join.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to welcome you. All right. So fun and learning. Does it need to be fun? Do we need to make it fun? Do we owe it to our kids to make it fun? I don't know. Let's see. So I think this is where we might differ a little bit, because when we hit roadblocks in our learning, it is typically a project that my kids have chosen. And so they are self-motivated to get through the roadblock. And they know that that roadblock, once they pass it, leads them to something else that is meaningful to them. So that might vary. I don't want to speak for you, but it might vary for us a little bit. I know your kiddo is a really determined learner, so it might not be such a thing, but it might also be something that you've instilled over time, I'm thinking too, because you've kind of created the culture that you have for your homeschooling style. But that sense of discipline where not everything in life will be inherently enjoyable. Sometimes perseverance just needs to be the thing. Again, I think that that's easier to sell when the thing that you're persevering through and kind of trudging through is something that you chose and that is really meaningful to you. If it's writing a 5-page essay on FDR's government programs after the Great Depression, like, you might be like, that's a little harder to persevere through because I really don't care. So there's that. Delayed gratification is another component, right? I mean, especially right now, we see these statistics for social media and stuff that the trending videos are 7 seconds long and this and that, because after 7 seconds, people lose interest. And it's like, holy macaroni, what have we done to our attention spans? So that idea of delayed gratification, of being able to push through work that is boring or repetitive to reach bigger goals, for us, that's not really such a thing, but it is a principle that's there. It is a thing. We don't do a lot of repetitive work because once you've gotten something, you've gotten it, and we just kind of move on. But yeah, there are some things to be said for not fun. It's not as big a part of our lives, but those are some things. They're there. They exist for a counterbalance or whatever you want to say in our case. There you go. They exist.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I know we've talked about it before in a previous episode, but I personally really hate that saying, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. For me, that's like the perfect way to ruin a hobby, make it tied to my ability to feed myself and to have electricity. And it's not
It's
really
work.
yeah, like, so I do think for us that discipline and perseverance, we definitely do have that. I will say my kiddo would probably be far more interested in writing a 5-page essay about FDR's government programs than he would like Taylor Swift lyrics, which is the real big thing right now because Life of a Showgirl's just out. But yeah, also the delayed gratification. I think you do have to work on that more these days because there's just not as many opportunities for delayed gratification. I mean, join me, raise your hand if you're one of the many people who stopped using Amazon as much. And now you're like, wait a minute, it takes me how long to get that thing that I bought from the other website? You want me to wait 3 weeks for this to show up? What is happening here? You remember when that was normal? Delayed gratification is a lot harder these days. But but still important. I think too, there's the misconception of fun, constantly making learning flashy or entertaining. There's a big push. Social media, especially, is there to make us think that everything has to be that way and every meal has to look like a cute Hello Kitty scene or whatever it is. But in a lot of ways, that can devalue or take away from quieter or slower or sometimes even more reflective learning. There's fun is a good thing and it definitely has its place, but it's not the only thing. And let's be real, if you are one of those parents that is trying to keep everything fun and you're trying to be that that mom or that dad caregiver who is making sure that, oh, it's Halloween time, so the quesadillas all look like jack-o'-lanterns and just all the things. And like, oh, well, we could do science or we could do potion making and we could make sure this and that. Sometimes, sure, great. If it brings you joy, wonderful, fantastic. But you cannot do every single thing to that level. It is just not sustainable. And that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. I was that when my kids were younger, that everything was over the top, joy, fun, themed, like just so much, so much, right? And now I do none of that. And part of that is probably that my kids have gotten older, and part of it is probably burnout, and part of it is we've cut down consumables and things like that tremendously. And when you look at these things that are done on social media like that, and people are buying props and outfits and all to always have like the perfect outfit, and I mean, it's all fast fashion. And so we've cut out so much of that as a very deliberate choice. But it was exhausting. It was absolutely exhausting. And I'll be honest, for my youngest kiddo, for my uber neurodivergent kiddo, it was too much. He couldn't handle that level of continuous enthusiasm and excitement and kind of anticipation all the time. It was way too much for him. And so we had to take everything down like 10 steps in order for him to just even make it through some of those events. So it's another
Yeah.
thing to consider.
Well, no. And I mean, look, I bring up the jack-o'-lantern quesadillas because I totally made them. And I also have the stuff at home to make spiderweb pancakes this month because, look, I love Halloween. We all love Halloween in my home. So there's a place for that.
Yeah.
It's okay to have fun, but you don't have to make every single thing like that and risk burning out to the point where you just don't want to do it at all, right? Again,
Mhm.
balance. We're talking about balance here.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. It's like a permission slip to not have to be the Pinterest parent all the time because holy crap, it's exhausting. And then you have people that are doing it and posting it all the time. And it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a lot. The other thing too, I just kind of mentioned it, is my youngest kiddo can't sustain that level of excitement or enthusiasm and that level of anticipation of what's coming next. So knowing your own kiddos and what their specific needs are. For younger kiddos, we have a whole course online about pre-K and kindergarten and how those kiddos thrive on play-based education and a more fun approach. And that's not just Meagan and Amanda spouting off. That is, we based it on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies telling us this from all over the world. So telling us what works and what doesn't work. So for younger kids, that might be more of a default setting.
Exactly. And with older kids, tweens, teens, they may benefit. This is one of those things we just did an episode not that long ago about making sure that you're scaffolding all of the important things. And so you can have fun, but your older kiddos will probably benefit from learning to tolerate certain amounts of frustration, right? And learning to stick with tasks for a certain amount of time. No one's saying they have to do something indefinitely. None of us have to do something indefinitely if we really don't like it. But this idea of helping scaffold some of those skills, these life skills that they're going to need, but that doesn't outweigh the fact that you have to take into consideration personality differences.
Mm-hmm.
Some kids will thrive on challenge. Other kids will shut down unless, they're engaged in a really playful manner. And that's on a continuum. There's Some kids, it's in some specific things, right? That they're going to push back on if you don't introduce it in a fun way. Some kids, it doesn't matter what it is you're trying to do. If you're not careful about how you introduce it, it's not going to happen. And then that will also change too. I'm often surprised in groups when I see people who are like, oh, I've got a 5, 6, 7 year old and we're trying to do math. And every time they get something wrong, they just have a meltdown and it's the end of the world and they don't want to keep. And it's like, well, of course, they're little and they're just learning. And I would bet that you, as an adult, if you got something back that was marked full of red ink and all of these kind of things, you would shut down and be like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do it again. Of course, a 5, 6, 7 year old is like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do it again. So, keep in mind that age plays a big part there too. And that naturally you're going to develop a little bit more tolerance for that kind of stuff as you get older. And so how much fun and play needs to be there when they're littler versus older it's going to shift. We just did an episode about like, is it developmentally appropriate? This is one of those things, right? Keep in mind how developmentally appropriate it is.
Mhm. I was laughing because I had mentioned previously that my daughter and I are working on a book about unschooling and my perspective and her perspective and all of that. And my parents had been away and they just came back. And so I had sent the Google Doc to my mom and said, can you please proofread, edit, whatever I needed, a fresh set of eyes on it. She was like, no problem. So this morning I was sitting on the couch at my girlfriend's house and we're just chatting and I get a little Google Doc notification that said that my mom had made 17 comments. And I was like, okay. And it's a book, it's lengthy. So I was like, not bad. 17 comments. I'll take it. I didn't realize that came through either because Google had done an update or maybe she took a break or something like that. So then I was like, oh, I'll look at it later. And then we went out for a walk. We took the dogs for a walk and I checked my phone while we were out and I looked down and it was like 35 comments. And I was like, okay, right. And again, still, it's a book. It's not that many comments, but it's like that thing. You're handed a piece of paper with a red all over it, right? It was like, that was my version today. And I'm 44 years old. And I was like, I'll edit that this weekend and it'll feel great when it's done. So I'm going to push through because it's going to feel great when it's done. But I chose this project along with my daughter. And so it's meaningful to us. And there's a means to an end of making my 35 corrections or whatever it is. So red ink. I gotcha. It's the Google version of red ink. So some other factors to consider. That balance of childhood should be joyful versus we are preparing the kids for the real world. And sometimes the real world sucks. So how you find that balance. And for me, I think you hit on it before, Amanda. When they're little, I don't think they need to learn that the real world sucks when they're super little. I mean, disappointment, yes. You're not always going to get your way. Some things, but I don't think they need to learn the harsh reality of the real world at 5, 6, and 7. So small disappointments and generally speaking, a joyful childhood. As they get older, you can start to kind of phase in a little bit more of the real world and a little bit more of like, yeah, it's rough sometimes, but still joyful. There should still be joy in life. I think all through your life, there should still be joy and trying to mitigate the real world sucks situation.
I laugh because if you've listened to the podcast, like I'm all about a silver lining. It drives my mom insane. I can find a silver lining in any situation. But also, I have a favorite saying, and it's just life sucks and then you die. And again, for anyone who knows me, like you understand how those two things go hand in hand. And it's said with a little bit of tongue in cheek and also, like that, like for me in a lot of ways, it's part of the silver lining thing. But in any event, you talk about how kids should know those things early on. I'm 100% positive that my kid could recite that by the time he was like 3. Because that's just, it's just like, I know life sucks and then you die. So what are we going to do next?
Let's sprinkle in some joy, right? Right. Well, and you brought up your mom too. I think there's generational differences too. I mean, back in the day, it was more of a grit first society. And if you get a joyful moment, count yourself lucky. And now we've kind of made a hard swing in the other direction. I will say as Americans, that's been the mentality. Whereas in other cultures, I think there's been a little bit more balance. I mean, if you look at the countries that are the happiest countries in the world, their grit first versus joy is probably a little bit different balance than ours. But as an American society, that's it. So if you're getting pushback for your decision to homeschool from parents, from grandparents who are like, why are you making it fun? We just learned science from a textbook. You don't need to be mixing potions or making volcanoes on the kitchen table. There has been a shift in our culture towards more joy, towards more, I mean, work-life balance wasn't a saying when my parents were entering the workforce. Who talked about work-life balance in that time? So I think generational differences will come into play as well when it comes to balancing joy versus meaningful work versus perseverance and all of that.
I think that's true. I think it is important to keep in mind that for some people, they may be overcorrected. I know one person who was always like, "Well, I didn't get all of these things when I was a kid, and I wanted this, and I wanted that, and I wanted," and so she's made a real effort to make sure that her kids get everything that she ever wanted, as well as everything that they've ever wanted. And at some point, real life is going to step in, and it's going to be like, "Hey, in your early 20s, just because you want it doesn't mean you get it," and that's going to be like a real hard reality. So it is important to keep those things in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I know for us, we mentioned generational differences, and you kind of touched on it also, the cultural differences and attitudes. So in some societies, they really do emphasize rigor and endurance, and others might have a greater emphasis on creativity and exploration. And I think that this becomes especially noticeable in interracial families. I'm not sure how much you guys have dealt with this in your home, but I know in our home, my husband, my partner, comes from a culture that generally does not value creativity or exploration or in many ways just fun. It's considered a frivolous waste of time, generally speaking. And that can be a real struggle just in our home, figuring out your parenting style. And then if you decide to homeschool, and now not only do you have to figure out your parenting style season after season after season as new things come up, now you're also navigating and balancing how you do education and how you do learning and all of that when you're coming from two very different places on the spectrum. And I will say this, there's loads of research on this. It's out there, it's available. There are articles in magazines that are easier to understand, and there's peer-reviewed journals, and there's books, there's loads and loads of research out there. So if you're in a situation like that and you're thinking, I want to do this at least a little bit differently than I was raised, but I'm just not sure how, or I'm not sure what's best, I'm not sure how to justify it to the other people in my life who are like, well, that's how you did it and you grew up just fine. There are resources out there online, and you should totally just hit up Google. Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have so much of it when it comes to fun and things like that because I am also in an interracial marriage, but ours is more the gentle parenting thing where I am a gentle parent. I would say I was raised gentle parented for the 80s and the 90s. Gentle parenting has evolved since the 80s and the 90s, but I would say my mom did the 80s version of gentle parenting. And my husband's family could not have been more opposite from that. So yeah, it's fun when you bring those two styles together. It's you never know what you're gonna get. So yeah.
Fun is one word for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So we have a little bit more for you, but we realized that we have not done a giveaway in forever and a year. I don't know how. We've been busy. Well, I mean, we've been living through a collective 10 months of hell as Americans. Maybe that's how it fell off the radar. I'm not quite sure. It's more about been like surviving and trying not to have the news get us curled up in the fetal position. So we have a giveaway. We will tell you about it momentarily, so don't go anywhere, but we're super excited about it. So yay, we're back to giveaways. It's going to be good.
Yeah, that should be fun. Okay, so kind of to wrap up in general, we talked about a lot of different things, but I think it's important to remember and keep in mind you can have fun as a tool versus fun as the end goal. Fun can be a gateway into learning. It helps kids buy in, it lowers resistance, and for the most part, it's going to spark curiosity and just general interest, and that will grow into a love of learning. If you wrap math facts into a silly game or a pizza unit study, kids are going to be more likely to participate without a fight. It's more fun to do that way. But the goal isn't to make every single lesson a comedy show or a party. Maybe there's a family out there where it's like this, but we can generally agree that fun isn't the ultimate destination. It's not always the destination. It's the bridge that gets kids across to deeper engagement and greater learning, and hopefully that lifelong love of learning that we're always talking about trying to spark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. That's like an awesome summary. I feel like we should just clip that and be like, here's your mini episode, but details are good too. All right. Yeah, I mean, because sometimes the biggest payoff comes after the fun ends. Once you stick with a project long enough to see the progress, the satisfaction of having succeeded with something becomes a big motivator. I mean, we had that today as grown-ups. I mentioned at the top of the episode that my girlfriend that I'm staying with has had a really, really tough year. And we know as grown-ups, right, you get stuck where you just can't move forward with something. There's blocks, whether it's mental or emotional or whatever the case might be. And we accomplished one thing today, which was big in an emotional way, but small in a logistical way, and totally like high-fived afterwards. And, I'm like, we did it. We got past that big block that's been challenging. So yeah, kids need that too. It feels really, really good. So using fun strategically also teaches kids that enjoyment and effort can coexist and can feed one another in a way. They learn that sometimes this is going to be lighthearted and playful, and sometimes I'm just going to have to put the work in. And your homeschool approach is going to shift that a little bit because, as I mentioned, for us, it's a little bit different, but that's okay. But yeah, it works. It's really good. So that balance is good. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so giveaway time. Super exciting. We have in our Teachers Pay Teacher shop some bundles of unit studies that we have done, and they're thematic bundles. So we have, for example, a science and survival unit study bundle, which contains our unit studies on wildlife conservation, women in medicine, and a unit study about potatoes that is far more in-depth than most people realize. We've gotten so much feedback about this potato unit study where people are like, all that from a potato. So we've got that one. We've got civics and social justice, which talks about the Voting Rights Act of 1965, labor rights in America, taxes in America. We have innovation and invention. We have American history and legacy. We have STEM and discovery. So we have these amazing bundles. We've got a social justice and human rights bundle. And each of them has 3 unit studies inside of it that are linked thematically to one another. And their one individual unit study is ridiculously robust. So 3 of them is like bonkers robust. And so you will have your choice, whichever one you want. We'll send you, if you are the winner, we will send you a list of those unit studies and what each one contains, and you can tell us, and we will send you those 3 unit studies, which is super exciting. And then, as if that wasn't enough, I have recently published a book called 101 Comebacks to Homeschool Objections. It is everything from polite replies to powerful comebacks and everything in between. So if you have people that are up in your business about your decision to homeschool, it will give you all of the tools that you need to shut that down. So that will be another giveaway as well. So check in the show notes here for a link to enter, and we will have all the details there as far as when it ends and how to enter and all that kind of stuff. So head to the show notes, and we would love to give you some free stuff. Who doesn't love free stuff?
Free stuff's awesome. And the unit studies too. I mean, people are always like, well, but I know most of that. Like, I learned something every time we have a unit study. And when we were just visiting my parents over the summer, my kiddo does the unit studies usually like on kind of summer break, and winter break is like fun learning because we kind of do year-round schooling. But my parents are well informed. They're very politically well informed. But my mom was like, I learned so much from this, like watching over the kiddo's shoulder and like some of the videos and your dad is a total history buff and he could not answer all of the questions and on this worksheet that was in here, like you should find a way to market these to adults that want to know more and want to be better educated, because like our generation did not learn this stuff when we were
Mm-hmm.
in school, right? So they're, yeah, they're really great. And yeah, don't worry, like, oh, I don't know if it's really right for my kids or my kiddos are older or whatever. You'll all learn something because we've worked really hard to make sure that there are easy resources for the youngest peanuts in the group. And there are things that even the grandparents, you're like, hey, can you oversee little Johnny while he watches this video because you really need to learn this real history? I mean,
Yeah. Right. Well, and if you as an adult aren't sure what to do with a unit study, you're like, I'm new to homeschooling. I keep seeing people talk about unit studies, and now here these two are talking about unit studies. What the heck is a unit study? How do I use this thing? I have curriculum. How does it fit in? There's a link in the unit study to a video that's like a little mini episode of Amanda and I talking about, we break down one of our unit studies in the video and how each of us would go about using that unit study and how we would incorporate it into our homeschool lives and all of that good kind of stuff. So if you as an adult need a little bit of support figuring out how they work or how best to tackle them, which there really is no wrong way to tackle the unit study, but if you'd like a little guidance for the first time, we've got you covered there too, which is pretty awesome. Our October unit study that just went out yesterday to our Patreon members, and it went on Teachers Pay Teachers today, meaning the day we're recording, not the day you're listening to this. It was about the New York City subway system because the New York City subway opened in October. We usually try to tie it to a historical event that happens. And I was just in New York, as I mentioned, and it was so funny because I'll never look at subway tiles the same way again, meaning actual subway tiles, not the ones everyone has for their backsplash nowadays. Because there was this whole video on why they have subway tiles there and the historical impact and the environmental reasons and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm getting on and off the trains and I'm looking at the tiles and the mosaics that they do with the tiles. And I'm like, oh, looking at this through a whole new lens. I was born in New York. Like, this is not new to me. And I was just like, wow. So yeah, I love it. I'm such a nerd. I'm like, I love it.
yeah, no, and funny thing is, like, totally, we did not talk about this before we recorded, but just this morning in the newsletter that I sent out to all of our free members, I included the link for how to use the unit study. Of like, not sure about this. Like, we put it out a while ago, but like different things we just remind people. So yeah, it's there too. If you're like, I do not understand this whole like go look in the show notes thing. If you're on Patreon, you can go look at the October newsletter, and the link is easy there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so hopefully you got something useful out of that beyond just the fact that we're giving away a bundle of unit studies. Try to keep it fun. And fun looks different ways for different people. And fun isn't just a day at the amusement park or, binging your favorite movies, all the things. That said, we like to make sure that we wrap up every episode with a mantra. So we've got your mantra for the week. Learning doesn't have to be all fun or all grind. It's about finding the sweet spot where curiosity meets perseverance.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thanks for joining us today. And we hope you have a wonderful day of homeschooling and a little fun sprinkled in. And we will catch you next time.
Yeah, have a great one.